So here is where we got stopped. So I just want to pick it up and we just want to evaluate these two if statements. And I gave some assumptions. So I said A is 4 and B is 2. That's the first one we're going to look at. And we have to decide what is going to run based off that comparison. So this would be the same thing as saying if 4 is greater than 2. And 4 is greater than 2, so that is true. And since this is true, we only run these instructions. So it would say instruction attack. If I say flipped A is less than B, now this would be a false statement. So it would skip this instruction attack and it would go to command defend. And we can also do this with strings. And this is saying if D is equal to C, then you attack. Otherwise, defend. So we plug in these values C and D, and we end up getting a false. So it skips attack, and we go straight to defend. Let's check out this next slide. So there's this great idea, and what it is you can have multiple if statements. So you can check for different things in different orders. So if I was going to make a flow chart for this one, I like to check for the highest priority item first. So in this case, the score is greater than 10. So if I was going to write this out, I would make a flow chart. I would say, check if the score is 10 or greater. And you make decisions based off that. If it is, then you're going to run these two lines of code, lines 4 and 5. If it's not, you know what happens on this? It's going to jump down to this next if statement. So you're going to do another check. Is the score greater than 5? And you run through it and make a decision. And it either runs lines 7 and 8 or it skips to the else statement. That is sort of how these comparisons work. So the order does matter. Here is a good example of why. This is that same code. If you're going to say the score is like, let's say 11. So I'm going to insert a text box and say our score is 11. Make sure I spell that right. That gives us, this looks bad. Okay, there we go. Score is 11. When we go through this code, when we check, we're going to check with the first if statement. The score is 11 and that it is greater than 5. So it's going to run lines 24 and 25. The problem is it's never going to get to line 26 because if it's greater than 10, it's always just going to do whatever it is in lines 24 and 25. We do not want that. We want it to be able to check for the highest item first. So if I was the coder, I would rearrange lines 26 and lines 23. You want to check for the hardest or the highest priority case first. You can see this when we check with grades as well. So if I plug in like my grade is, let's say 70, grade is 70. So I would check first to see if like it's a 90 and it's not. And then I check for the next highest. It's an 80, it's not that high. But it is greater than a 70. So that means it must be a C. But if we rearrange these to be in the opposite value, or to like go up, if we checked with the lowest score first, we would never get to the next steps because 70 is higher than 59. So you just get a D every time. So here's a great example. There is this link, and the order is messed up on this app. What I made it for is a health bar, and the problem with it is like a health bar when we run code, it's supposed to scale. So if you have like full health to about 3/4 full health, it should be green. And then it should jump into yellow when it's in like the middle region. And once you get down low, it turns red. And so as the value changes, it should change colors. The problem with this one is um, our check. So if we enter in, like, let's say the number 80, if we entered in the number 80, we want it to be green because that's almost full. So let's say we say health is 80. The problem is this first if statement is true, so it's always going to be yellow. So if we wanted to fix this, what I would do is I'm going to erase this. Why is it not erasing? Why is it not? It's not erasing. But anyways, I would make a remix of this, and we would have to adjust because we want it to be green. So we actually want to check for the highest score first. So I would put 75 first, and then I would put 5. I would change this to be green, and I would change this to be yellow. So now when my score is 80, this is going to be true, and it's going to turn it green. But if my score is, let's say, 74, 74 is not greater than 75, so it's going to go to the next check. And yes, that's true. 74 is greater than 25, so it's going to be yellow. And you can see this in the debug console. So when I run this code and I click subtract health, health is 100. Oh, I got to reset this because this did not work. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's working. So and it should turn red, and it should go up to green once we hit 70. So watch when oh, I didn't change this one. That's why too. You got to change both of them. So we actually I got to change this one too to be 75 and green. I'm stupid. I didn't look at this bottom one. And yellow. And make it 25. So now there's the check when we click both buttons. It was only working one way. So now it should be green. Should be green. It should be green. As we go. So we're checking every time. And it should turn to green on this click. And when we subtract it, it should turn to yellow. So we kind of want to set it up with high order to low order. Make sure you change both of them if you're messing around with this, because I made that mistake. I didn't do it on the button subtract health clicked. It will go up to green right now. And when we subtract, it should go yellow. And it does the same thing when it goes from 30 to 20. So you see, if you look down here, and it displays. So this console log's in the wrong spot. I would move that too. It should be below the value change. So that's sort of how that idea works. I made a flowchart for it, which I think is really important. So you always start off, your first decision should be like the hardest one. So in my case, this is health is greater than 75 is my first check. If it is, green. If not, you're going to ask a new question. Is the health greater than 25? If so, it's going to turn yellow. If it's not, it's going to turn red. So I have 3 colors, so I need to ask at least 2 decisions if I have 3 colors. And you guys are going to have to draw a flow chart for your work too. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to open this up and you're going to make a copy. So I would view code and remix it. And I sort of use 2 variables. I have a level one and I have a temperature one. How this is going to work is if it's really hot, that's your first check. You want the temperature level or the power level to go up. You want to turn the AC up. So my first check is like if the temperature is greater than 85, which it was earlier in the year, you want to turn that thing up on full blast. And I actually added a sound too. Your next checks are going to be if the temperature is above 80. So that's your second highest range for power level 2, in between 80 and 85. So you're going to have to compare the temperature to 80 and then set it to level 2 if that is true. And then your next highest check is if it's above 70, you need to be at power level 1. So you're going to check temp. Is it greater than 70? And then indicate the instructions. And then otherwise, we want to be like 0. So I'm going to change that to 0. Actually, I messed up. If it's like lower than 70, then you just don't even need the AC on. So that's what you guys are kind of going to do. And you're going to have to know how to compare these values and make sure you go from high to low. You're also going to have to make a flowchart, which I kind of started, but I didn't finish. So I, again, asked the highest temperature first, yes or no, because you either end it or you go on and do another check. Is it greater than 80? Yes or no? If it's not, you go on and do another check. So make sure you guys check from high to low as you are doing this homework. Let me check if there's any other ideas that we need to cover for this assignment. So it's this one. Okay, so you're going to have to do an if statement for if your age is old enough to drive. So it's going to be very similar to this one, but you're going to change the comparison to be like 16. Then you're going to do a password one. So you're going to check a string with a variable that is the correct password. 6.6, so I'll just take a look at real quick. So what you're going to have to add is a flow chart. You're going to have to draw a flow chart for this. So remember the hardest first, and the second highest and the third. And you're going to have to add one for 15. So I would really look at this part right here. You're going to want to check if the score is greater than 15, you're going to make this number even smaller. So you can do that by either, I would add one more if, and I would actually, you can do it a couple ways. I would just start dragging everything down And because you want to check the highest score first. So you want to check if it's at 15 first, and then if it's at 10. So you're going to have to compare the score to 15. And what it wants you to do is make it even smaller. And we actually would give a smaller number here. So I might go like 15. Because that's really small. And you're going to have to know what you're comparing. So you're going to have to compare score to 15. And it's not running right. It's not going to run right now. But if the score is greater than 15, it's going to make the lemon be really small width and really small height. If it's greater than 10, it's a little bit bigger. If it's greater than 5, it's even bigger. And when you start, it's at the biggest size possible. So please come to office hours if you're stuck. Here's the video.